All right, folks, we're almost to the end of it. Appreciate everybody for coming out. We'll be posting these when we get them edited and everything. So if you missed something, they'll be available at the seekingeducationalexcellence.org website. I saved Michael for last for a reason. He's become quickly one of my idols, one of the most brilliant technical and political minds in America. And over the last two decades, Michael has pointed his keen intellect at the world of politics, writing the multiple award-winning blog called Cobb. I didn't know I was reading Michael's blog until I had met him under his real name. I mean, well, Cobb is a name, it's one of his middle names, but I met him under that, and I immediately dubbed him the Black Elon Musk. Regular at NPR contributor, he's a host at Cafe Utne, founder of the Conservative Brotherhood, online writings and projects on political, cultural, philosophical subjects reach back 23 years. And he came back from Oxford Union. He was invited to go there to speak, and I'm very proud to say that he did a wonderful job over on the other side of the pond with some other black heavyweights. I think you were there with Glenn Loury, right, Michael? Were you over there with Glenn?
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, we're going to talk a little bit about artificial intelligence. And I think the reason why I wanted to cover this subject from a woke perspective is a lot of people were asking me when I was doing events, Kevin, where do you think it's going? And I said, have you seen the movie Terminator? And then when Michael and I were talking, he says, well, we'll see how we get there. So we're going to cover artificial intelligence and the woke generation. All right. So I'm going to begin by telling you that when I started this conversation with Michael, I thought I knew AI. You know, my degrees in electrical engineering, computer science, and math. And I tell him all the time, when I talk to him, I feel rather stupid. So what we're going to try to do is synthesize this down. And Michael, we've had a couple of conversations. Let's talk about the elements of artificial intelligence.
Sure.
From a simplistic point of view, that in terms where people get that they're already kind of embracing it. And what I want people to understand is this. You may hear of AI and you're wondering, well, is it something I want to do or what? You're already doing it. You're using AI all the time. And the question you may be asking yourself is, where is it going to evolve to? And will it become, as they said in Terminator, sentient and actually be able to attack man? And Michael gave an amazing presentation for me privately about it. And let's begin with sort of the tenets of AI and walk people through it.
Sure. Well, all of us are using computers in some way, and we can think of the evolution of them as just ordinary computers. So if you have a laptop, then using a computer. If you put a spreadsheet on that, then you may be using analytics. So you have some statistics on there, bar charts, pie charts, the general thing that you see. The next level is called machine learning. And it's basically the ability to have a computer figure things out. It'll discover patterns that aren't obvious to us. And then the top of this would be artificial intelligence. And artificial intelligence is kind of the largest bucket because it's all the things that we think computers shouldn't be able to do. So once upon a time we said, well, computers will never beat a chess grandmaster, or computers will never be able to speak as well as the HAL 9000 from the movie 2001. And those are all milestones that we in the industry have been trying to beat and push back. So we have actually made a lot of progress in artificial intelligence, and a surprising amount in the past couple of years.
So we've evolved from using it as a simple machine. We put it into this bucket that we're calling AI, and we jumped through some hoops where we thought, because I remember, when the computer talked like this, and then suddenly now we're speaking into it. And let's use an example, navigation. How has simple navigation and artificial intelligence revolutionized that?
Sure. We may be using Google Maps or Apple Maps, and we can ask these electronic assistants without programming. So in the 80s, we thought about how are we going to get people to learn how to use computers? They were very complex. They were very simple-minded. And it's interesting that it's the inverse now. Excuse me. When computers were small, you had to be really good to program them and make them understand anything at all. And now computers have become very powerful, and now you can just talk to them. All of us are using electronic assistants like Alexa, which I hope I didn't trigger any of your Alexas, or Siri, or Hey Google. And now we can just ask. Even for computer graphics, in the 80s and 90s, the idea that you could have an interactive map on a flat screen that changed with your direction. I mean, we didn't even have GPS satellites at the time. So there's a lot of technologies involved, all trying to make our lives a little easier by making computers a little bit smarter.
So in this, so I can tell you right now, I love speaking into my phone, doing these. In our house, we don't use Alexa. What we did when our aunt was there, and she was quadriplegic, and we had to put it in there, and it did all these things for her. Mm-hmm. But we were a bit leery because, you know, Alexa, it was always Big Brother's listening. I think we're at a point now, maybe in our evolution, where we think Big Brother's listening anyway, so why does it matter? But I think that when I'm talking to folks about AI in terms of what is the evolution, we start looking at the ability to use AI for evil, faking voices. I think there was a kid recently, they used AI to make it sound as if the kid had been kidnapped.
Yeah.
So maybe talk about that a little bit.
Sure. So let's talk about some of the big parts of AI. What are AIs doing? Obviously, if you're playing video games and there's zombies coming at you, these zombies weren't programmed to know. They figure out where they are. They're on the hill, they're coming towards you, or you're shooting bullets at them. They understand that they're vulnerable. So there are AIs or non-player characters in video games all the time. And we're used to that. And they would be boring without them. But there are certain areas of AI that are moving very fast now. One of them is natural language processing. Okay, so natural language processing means I don't have to be a computer programmer for me to get the computer to understand what I'm saying. I can just speak in English or French or German or Italian or any language, and the computer will understand what I'm saying. And not only that, there's kind of sentiment analysis. So under NLP, natural language processing, I can say, here's a paragraph. This is a paragraph that somebody wrote on Facebook. Is it favorable or is it unfavorable? Is this a critical thing? Does the person seem happy who wrote this? So you can automate those processes. AIs can do that kind of thing.
So I was watching, we watched this TV show, I don't know, it was on one of the movie channels, and it was called The Peripheral. And they transfer their essence, if you will, to I'm going to call it a cyborg, for lack of a better word.
Right.
And it takes on the identity of this person. And I'm watching this, and I'm saying, I see this crazy evolution coming, and because you were talking about the human form and the human form of us and the digital form of us. Can you kind of expand on that a little bit?
Sure. When I thought I might be doing a PowerPoint, I said, how do I want to communicate this about AI? I want to inform people about AI. I want to warn them, but I don't want them to be afraid. And so, like all kinds of things that happen in the US that are a little bit beyond our kin, we have some control by being old school. And so I said, what happens to human value when machines can think? Now, in the computer science industry, we've always been saying machines can think. We're just not smart enough to know how to make them think. But the question is, really, where is your life in balance? You have a digital life, your life online, or maybe United Airlines knows you as your frequent flyer number. Your insurance company knows you as a set of statistics. Your doctor might not even really know you until they have these measures about your blood. And then you have your real life, your life with your family, your life with your community, your life with your friends, the life you do when you're playing sports or watching a game at a bar. And so the question is, are you vulnerable to AI? Are you vulnerable to the people and the corporations who build these? It depends on how much time you spend in your digital life. And so I'm one who wrote my first program before Star Wars. Okay, I was 14 years old when I first wrote computers. So I spent a lot of time talking to computers and interacting with computers. And naturally, in the 70s and 80s, they said, you're a geek. You're just sitting in front of that screen all day, just typing. What's wrong with you? Don't you have a real life? And I'm like, yeah, I do. But I learned what computers can and can't do. And so I always worked hard to not let that be my entire life. Okay? So I think about the work that I do ultimately as affecting people. I write for people, and I write for computers, and I write for people through computers. So you need to think about the balance of the time you spend in front of screens when you're running around in the world that I created for you versus in the real world, the world where you have a little bit more control.
But in the real world, you're tracking me.
Yeah. And that's what Mark Andreessen says. Software is going to eat everything. So you have to be careful about what's known about you. You have to be able to protect your privacy. And, you know, we can even thank the EU because they have passed laws, GDPR, which says if I have medical information about you, I can't share it without your permission. And hopefully that kind of stuff, that kind of good regulation will help us in terms of.
But Michael, haven't we crossed the Rubicon? Because, you know, I'll get a notification on my phone that says, here's everywhere you've been this month. And it comes from Google.
Yeah.
And Google says, I heard the president of Google say, well, you can turn it off. Well, I can't turn it off because I'm trying to get somewhere and I'm using your app to tell me how to get there.
Right.
Right. So, you know, there's a certain amount of permission that we've got to give. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to get to the woke part of this because I know people are wondering, you know, what is it about woke AI? And that comes with the deep fakes and the fake voices and even Hollywood. We talked earlier in the seminar, in the summit, about Hollywood experiencing the actors striking because they're writers now that can write through AI. Mm-hmm. They're actors that can be replicated, if you will. Their digital life can be technically stolen.
Yes.
To that. So, you know, we've given a bit of permission. We've got people like yourself who are very astute at how to do this. I see a lot of danger there.
Yeah, there is. But the good news is that we have two major advocates. First of all, for most of, you know, we talked about how Bill Gates has made his money with Microsoft. But there is open source software. And that means that there are ordinary people who can collaborate and share their ideas and build computer systems that are alternative to commercial. They're open and they're free. So we have had, in America specifically, very strong libertarian champions of saying, we don't want corporations to own all the software. We want to write our own software. And so there are independent developers out there. And then secondly, there's the Electronic Freedom Foundation, which has always been in favor of helping us and crafting laws that protect our privacy and give us software that helps us from being tracked by Google. For example, if you're always using Google as your search engine, well, obviously Google takes a history from you. But there's something called DuckDuckGo, which is an alternative search engine, which never keeps track of what you're doing. And then, of course, there's Tor networks. There's always different kinds of ways. And it's a good guys, cowboys and Indians fight that goes back.
That's what it seems like.
But yeah, you do have to stay on top.
Well, so let's dig into that a little bit. So we've got a government that I think many people in the room and many people that will be watching this video don't trust. A government that is very well funded, a government who is studying AI and probably has studied it to levels that we can't even imagine. Maybe you can because you're in the business of it. Elon Musk came out and said the thing that scares him the most is artificial intelligence. And I mean, this is the richest man in the world who's getting the peek behind all the curtains.
Yes.
And he's saying, I'm concerned of this as the biggest, and I love to use this for the biggest existential threat to mankind because I use it for everything. Picking up my dog's poop is the biggest existential threat to mankind for me. But if he's sounding this alarm bell, and I watched 5-6 years ago a guy morph into Tom Cruise and made to look just like him, which this was technology that's practically dinosaur today. Should we be scared? I mean, can someone, I think I already know the answer to this. Someone can steal my voice, steal my essence, create a video, create an audio, make it look just like me, sound like me, and ruin my life. And what's my recourse?
Yeah. So yeah, there are threats out there, but as with most of us, just being ordinary folks, the threats aren't really directed at us personally. If you are, for example, if you are a scientist that worked on the F-22 Raptor, then you know that Russians are setting up agents to find out what you know about how that machine was built. So a lot of us are protected more from the state actors in terms of stealing our privacy because we're small fish. But we are subject to scams. Obviously, you've seen the Nigerian prince that says, I have $7 million in the bank. If you just give me 5,000, I'll cut you in on this deal.
I'm waiting on my money right now.
Exactly. So there's always scammers, and just like people with dogs, there's some people train their dogs to bite and fight and kill. And so with all of these tools, there's a possibility for abuse. But the threat to you individually right now is mostly about you trading away your capabilities for the convenience. Okay?
Interesting. Well, I think so. We've got identity theft, which to me seems like it's on a very small spectrum edge of this. And now we've got, it's one thing to say, I'm going to steal you through numbers. It's another to say, for all intents and purposes, I'm going to make a hostage video and tell your wife to pay, X amount of money to get you back. I'm not sure whether mine would want me back, but we'll debate that one. But whatever the number is, I think people are seeing this sort of, where's this thing going? And let's look at it from a legislative point of view. We have legislation being written that is meant to obscure. And we had talked about, can you use ChatGPT to interpret that? What if you want to write a bill that's got some built-in, we were talking earlier about policy that is being written with destructive tendencies. And what if the government decides that's where they're going to put their stuff? Are we going to be able to counter this with what we write? If you say it's open source software, can we write something that counters that? Is that where we're seeing this go?
We can use these tools. And the thing to do is to put it in your own hands. So many times, like my own mother, we've said, well, these computers are too sophisticated, but my 14-year-old nephew can do it. Well, what happens after 7 years of you doing that? All the software companies are now writing stuff for teenage boys. And that takes over the market. Just the same way that Hollywood has dumbed down their arts. Like with reality show programming, it's cheap and easy for them to do it. So we have to be grown-ups about the way we use this software, and we can be smart about it. Again, the ChatGPT tools are not all free, but there will be free ones, and we can use them. And everybody kind of gets a research assistant, okay? Because you can say, here's a 200-page bill that went through. I can wait for the Secretary of State to give me something like that and boil it down, but also a ChatGPT kind bot can do that for you.
So it can be used for good in that respect. But I think people are using AI, and maybe I'm wrong with this, but we get up every day. I do my radio show. I go out, I look for all kinds of information. That information is coming back. I'm presuming that Google, what I want people to understand is how pervasive it is. But what if the information that I'm getting, how do I discern it? Because there came a point one time in our evolution, we were getting fake news. And we got to where we could determine what it was because we knew it didn't have a link back. Or you checked the link back and you said, oh, that link back went to a place that didn't exist. How are we going? I want to get to this Terminator scenario where, because we just don't know who the good guys are. And I'm seeing, looking at what's happened with the FBI, for example, and the information we get from that, looking at what's happened with the media and not being able to discern the truth from the lie. When are we going to take these tools and do something a little bit more that I feel like is going to answer our questions? And I don't want to make it one side versus the other, because you still have to discern what's good from bad for yourself. And I think we've come to that conclusion in our talks. But how does the average person know this is the information I'm getting? It's been driven by an AI engine. And is that AI engine, the right information or the wrong information? Who's going to check AI?
Yeah. The thing is, after a while, the more you use Siri or Alexa, you say, you're an idiot. You really don't know what I'm asking. I'm asking for something and you're giving me the completely wrong answer. So you will become literate in what the AIs sound like. You'll know, just the way you know how they put Wolf Blitzer in all these movies, and you have the little band underneath, and this is the situation, fresh news breaking out of Washington, and you know that media voice. You say, okay, that's mainstream media. And before, we were all vulnerable to it. But now we get a chance to listen to it, and we say, there's got to be another source. So you have to be smart, just like we've been talking about Michael Schellenberger in the earlier parts. You have to learn people that you can trust. And it has to be people that you can trust, people that you can meet and interact with and understand that they are real people rather than just bots that are spewing out stuff.
Well, who's the one doing? So you type in Donald Trump is and Google fills it out. It says pompous jerk, whatever. Hillary Clinton is a former beauty queen that used to be a Victoria's Secret model or whatever. Who's the one doing that? And when are we going to be able? I don't know that I'm ever going to trust it, but there's a part of me that has to understand that I've embraced it. And I think the biggest part for the people that I've talked to, and maybe the folks out there will have a different set of questions, but is it something that we're going to trust, or is it something that, and as I said before, is it going to become sentient to the point where we can never trust it? Because I think there are an element of people who don't. Let me just ask this. Is everybody aware of ChatGPT and what that is? Okay. So, because I was actually writing something the other day, just for those that aren't aware, and I said, finish this, and I wrote it in my voice, and AI finished my work.
Yes.
And put it back in my desk. And I will tell you, 99% of people wouldn't know that I didn't write it. I just started it.
Right.
That to me is very scary, that something could learn and adapt about me and spit something back out that's written in my voice.
Yes.
Because I was on a radio show once where a guy accused me of having said something, and I said, I never said that.
Right.
And he goes, yeah, it's your name, Kevin Jackson. It turned out it was a different Kevin Jackson, but he didn't know it. But when he said, this is what you said, I said, I know I didn't write that because I don't believe that.
Right.
But what about somebody deep faking me and doing a similar thing?
Yes. Well, it's an interesting kind of thing, because what the breakthrough now is with language, but not nonverbal communication. So I know when I look in your eyes and I see the emotion there, and I can see your deep concern about something, that's another level of communications that right now computers can't do anything about.
Yeah, but okay, so we say that today. Just like when the computer talked like this, and now suddenly the computer can sound just like me. So what about when the computer can look at me and sense the emotions, or look at an object that looks like me? Look, I've watched the evolution of when I was an electrical design engineer. The biggest thing for us to do was to get a robot to stand on each leg.
Mm-hmm.
That was the biggest deal because it was about balance.
Right.
And now we have robots that can be deployed, to work. So my curiosity is, do you see that type of evolution coming, looking behind the scenes of AI?
It can get there. The question is the fundamental relationship between you and people and society is trust. So if you just had to rework your whole system of trust, where do you go first? Maybe you go to your minister. Maybe you go to your relatives. Maybe you go to your best friend, your college roommate. All right? If we are going to let computer scientists rewrite society and we're just going to go all in for the convenience, then we get the society we deserve. So we have to be able to really improve our human side for our skills. I mean, we already know that people will try to deceive us and say that the color of our skin or the way we do sex is more important than the virtues or vices in our heart. All right? We already know that educational institutions can be corrupted and perverted by whack ideologies. We know that there's a kind of religious fundamentalism in this woke kind of thing that we talk about. We also know that if you're always looking at the front page of the New York Times or the Washington Post, you're not likely going to hear about the truth about our history. So you won't know that we have something in Western civilization to defend. It takes work and discovery and principle and discipline,
but it
real
also
character
takes
things to hold on to what's good in life.
Well, you're bringing up a good point. So it also takes the ability to critically think.
Absolutely.
In order to use AI properly, so I was using AI to draw something. I have no artistic skill whatsoever. And there was a program I used, and I created this art that's absolutely phenomenal. Mm-hmm. Now, it's all completely driven by this computer model, even though I'm still going to, the new version of Hunter Biden.
Right.
Try to demand $500,000 for my art. But so we designed our new set of merch over this AI thing, but I had to feed in the different elements of what I want. Mm-hmm. We've got a generation of people who are not being taught how to think. So here's AI that somebody's manipulating, and then there's a question of who's teaching it how to think. If I don't have the ability to critically think about what I wanted out of my so-called art, then I'm going to get junk.
Right.
So, and I think, and to the chase, we keep talking about the human element. Every time we have this conversation, I come to the conclusion that the smarter we are as human beings in understanding what AI is, the more we sort of distance ourselves from the machine-esque part of AI.
Yes. Well, there's always going to be smart ways to use tools. And the good news about this is that it actually enables us to be a little bit more creative. All right. So I can use an AI of some sort that may not exist today but in the future, and that'll give me a new kind of creativity to be and a new market that I might exploit. I mean, there are people we understand who think, well, there's not going to be enough economy for growth. There's not going to be anything else. All the smart things have been done. But kids will surprise us with what they've done on YouTube. And maybe they'll come up with a longer form, as Joe Rogan did, and then revolutionize something. So they're still tools, and we can still be creative with the tools and use them in new and different and exciting ways.
So let me ask you a question. It's an off-the-wall question.
Sure.
What do you think the answer from AI would be right now if I said, what is the maximum capacity for the human population on Earth?
They will look in their corpus and they'll say, who has written about this in the past 20 years that my masters have gathered? And they may have only gone to Davos forums or the WEF or UN.
That's what I'm curious.
And that corpus of information is going to point that AI in a particular direction.
Well, we just saw Mark do his presentation, and we saw that the world has just crossed 8 billion people. And I'm going to do that as a thought exercise because I'm curious what AI would say today. All right, let's take a couple of these questions. Well, I still want to go into the Terminator piece.
Oh, sure.
But so one question here is, what can writing teachers do now that an essay can be written in mere seconds by AI?
Yeah.
Oh, so what can the teachers do? Because a kid in school can now use AI to essentially look like a genius, in writing something.
I had this discussion with some smart people earlier this afternoon, and I thought about a couple things. Number one, when we think about Harry Potter, we see Professor McGonagall is asking the students to raise their hand and answer their questions in class. And then if you do it right, 1 point for Gryffindor. So there is an old school tradition of oral recitations and standing in front of the class and taking a part of Beowulf and describing what does it mean when he goes in the cave. So there are older forms of instruction that were very good that we can use and bring those together. Another idea is make the kids film each other. So put the kids up on a dais in front of the class and have them interview each other. And all the kids can take out their cell phones and put each other on the spot and say, well, did you really understand the War of the Roses or what the meaning of the War of 1812 was?
I think we are so far beyond this, Michael, it is ridiculous. If I had the tools of AI today that the kids have, do you think I would work as hard as I did when I was coming through school? There is no way. Was anybody out there, would you use AI today? I mean, I would use it in a New York minute, and I hated writing.
Well, and I would bet that Google's AI will want to identify everything that IBM's AI says. And IBM's AI will say, well, our AI is better than Microsoft AI. So the industry is going to battle within each other, and they're going to spend hundreds of millions of dollars to prove that theirs is the best.
Well, let's explore that for just a second. So let's say there are 3 kids writing a paper, and it's on a subject, and they want AI to write it. Does AI write the same thing, or do we get 3 different papers?
You'll get some variation in it, but the main points will be the same.
So if that's the case, then we're sort of driving ourselves towards this standardization, if you will. And I guess the smarter person doing the tweaking is the person who can do the best tweaking.
But still, a teacher needs to know their students. And I've had professors say, I know how this person participates in class, and they would never say anything like this.
Okay, but let's take it out of the classroom environment. And again, let's look at legislation, because we've talked about this. Somebody writes bad legislation, or how do they do these props, for example? They write a prop in such a way that the obvious yes answer is really the no answer. You should actually do the opposite of what the prop is. And I alluded to it earlier. Are we looking, and I'm just saying the people searching for truth, are we looking at AI responses that can dig out the truth, simplify that process, and say you don't want to vote this way? And I'm just using that as one example.
Yeah, I mean, one of I'm in the AI and analytics, and we have a legal tech division. So we have attorneys that come to us and say, well, we have this particular case. Can you just go through all FindLaw and LexisNexis and see what cases are close to these and find all the precedents? And yeah, it's putting legal assistants out of work, and it's not going to actually be good lawyering, because a good lawyer will be able to do associative thinking and talk about anecdotal things and synthetic, which is something that the large language models can't do right now.
Yet. So let's take that analogy a little further. So you've got the paralegal or somebody doing the research. What do we get to an evolution where a lawyer in his ear has such quick access to AI, it's listening through Alexa or whatever, Cortana or whatever service at the trial, researching immediately, bringing this information to your attention right there on the spot, citing case law.
Yes.
And you get where I'm going?
Yeah, that's very expensive. I mean, if you watch Queen's Gambit, which was an excellent film on chess,
The chess.
that's what they used to do, and that's how actually Big Blue beat Kasparov. But there was a team of chess players who were experts that helped program the computer. And in between, breaks, they would say, okay, here's some things you have to do.
Okay, well, that's a great example because Big Blue, that's how he beat Kasparov.
Yes.
But now with AI, if I'm not mistaken, the machine is now dominating the best chess players in the world every time. Is that right?
Yes, but now the world of chess has changed. And so that's more like how motorcycle racing outdid horse racing. And so the mechanics and the engineers are also drivers. So the hybrid chess is what the new chess is, and all the chess masters do it, and chess is more popular than it ever was before.
Well, but that's not what I'm asking. I'm saying when Big Blue beat Kasparov,
Yes,
Big Blue had help of human interaction.
yes.
Now, if a chess master is playing an AI engine, the AI engine is going to beat them every time.
It's still a hybrid. It's a hybrid chess, which is it's slightly different.
Okay. Shows what I know. All right, next question. Will AI get to the point where computers can predict human actions, for example, in military? A computer can predict where an enemy attack will come from. Are humans too spontaneous to be tracked and have AI predict every move we make?
Yes and no. A friend of mine who is a dean at Georgia Tech did the experiment for himself. And he wanted to find out how routine his daily morning was. So he put cameras around his house, and they would sense what room he went into, and then what he did in that room, and what room he went to next. And he says, well, maybe if I do this after a month, maybe it'll get good. It did it after about 5 days. And he found out that there are very few things that you actually do in your house every morning before you get ready to go to work. And it's a very routine kind of thing. So those kinds of things are very predictable. But if you put it on a football game, you're not going to get better odds. If you watch the human factor of the Bears playing in memory of Dick Butkus, and they were 0-4, they won. They beat the Washington Commanders last night. So those are things where 22 people are very unpredictable in how they will interact.
Okay.
Battlefield will even be more unpredictable.
Because of the number of variables.
Yes.
Well, so I don't know if you heard this story, and I believe it's true, that a father learned that his daughter was pregnant on Facebook. And what happened was he went to her screen and they were offering pregnancy stuff. And the girl did not know she was pregnant, but Facebook had predicted it and was sending pregnancy materials to her. And it did it because of everywhere it had tracked her movement and the things that she was doing.
Yeah.
Now that's scary.
That's scary. It's scary kind of in the way that Travelocity and Kayak are scary.
How are they scary?
They will say, well, you just did a vacation here. Maybe you want to do a vacation here. And there's a whole class of businesses where all they do is track our online movements. They said, well, you went to this site, maybe you'll like this site. And you're already getting spammed with that kind of email.
Well, I still find that they've been doing that for quite a while.
Yeah.
What I find more fascinating is when I get my monthly report of everywhere I've been and everything I've eaten and everyone I've seen, and it comes from my searching, just the tracking of me when I don't remember what I had for lunch 3 days ago.
Yes.
And that to me tells me that, they're doing a better job of tracking and monitoring me and understanding who I am than even I'm able to do. All right, let's get to this question. Will AI change our Constitution without our knowledge?
Oh, highly unlikely.
Yeah,
Highly unlikely.
I agree.
It's too many humans involved, and they have too many varying interests. You never know what will be raised in a confirmation hearing. Unpredictable.
All right, here's one. How much should I be concerned about being a conservative and, most importantly, a Christian? Is there a likelihood of being attacked digitally and financially? So maybe targeted by I'm guessing they're more interested in
your privacy is important. There are rules about when you can be photographed by anybody, and the scary part on that regard is like the recent story that's on the news of somebody who talked about defunding police, and they were brutally murdered, and somebody caught it on camera, and already there's people making jokes about it. So our privacy is at risk, and we have to absolutely fight for our liberty and be activist about making sure that we are free to move about and be secure in our persons.
Okay, well, let's talk about that, because I lived in China, and everywhere you go, you're looked at. And this was years ago. I can only imagine what it is today, where I remember the movie Minority Report, where you walk into the store and it sums up everything you're wearing. It tells you the value of it. You walk past the kiosk and it tells you, you might want to check out this store, but it's doing an iris scan and facial recognition and all that. I think that we are not that far away from that.
Well, again, this depends on our ability to have relationships. Now, I'll talk about me being Gen X and drinking from the water hose and actually going to a club to meet somebody. I never did any computer dating. I never used any of those online services. Right. So, and I grew up in a family with 5 kids. So I had some social advantages by actually knowing how to deal with people and understanding my parents weren't perfect. My brothers and sisters were pests, pain in the necks, and I learned to deal with people. So you have to, again, remember your human skills and not be so invested in your digital life.
Well, but you may not be invested in your digital life, but somebody's going to be invested in your digital life when you leave. I mean, that's what happened in China. The minute you leave, you're tracked. And they know who your friends are. They know the store you went to. They know the food you bought. And we're in a digital world. We pay by credit card. We rarely by cash. So we're going to be tracked. The
scary thing would be if we decided we can't trust police, let's have robots. And then we'd say all of these retail establishments, 7-Elevens, convenience stores, where we see those armed robberies, we're not going to send police there, we're going to send robots.
I actually think it's a great idea to send robots, because if a robot beats you up, who are you going to sue?
You'll sue the manufacturer.
Okay. I mean, if you're committing a crime and the robot gets you, that seems like
that's actually the kind of thing that Elon Musk is most afraid about.
Is it?
Which is what happens when you take human beings out of conflict.
I agree.
So if you're just a president who doesn't want to put boots on the ground, but you'll send drones in the air to prosecute targets, and you have somebody over in 29 Palms sitting in an electronic box with their video game sticks, and they're like, yeah.
Yeah, but okay, so let's take that. We talked about it before. There's a movement, a woke movement to defund the police. There's going to be anarchy at some point. Going Terminator, if we do have the RoboCop cop that's out there.
Yeah.
The question is, whose AI is operating the cop? Is that AI, and speaking to one of these questions, is that AI going to target Christian conservatives? Is it going to let off, left-thinking radicals, and
Right, right.
does Antifa get to do what it wants to do?
If we let it. Well, and look at our trend. Our trend is people make up statistics about how vulnerable I am as an unarmed black man, and I'm obviously going to get killed by a cop. And then you have cops saying, well, now you have to take down the race and gender and sexuality of everybody you pull over on a traffic stop. And then they just add those numbers up in a spreadsheet and says, you're not pulling across enough white men. You are taking the agency away from human beings and giving them to machines.
Exactly.
And that's the dangerous part. That's not the kind of country we want to be. That takes away our ability to do self-determination and self-government, which is what they have in China. China doesn't mind doing that.
But that's where I think people become skeptical, because it isn't like we don't have a model. We've got a model of a country that we seem to be heading quickly towards, that's there. And I don't know to what degree I haven't been there in a while, but from my friends, it appears to be the most draconian of all the implementation of AI.
For sure.
Knowing where you are, tracking cars. Now you go through the tollway, they track your little car meter or whatever. We have elements of it, and we're okay with it, because if we want to get on the tollway and use a toll tag and not have to stop and pay every 15 seconds, we embrace AI, right, in that regard.
Yeah.
But when you look at it in the long run of, okay, you're tracking every movement I have, I see why people fear this.
Yes.
And I see it because in those countries where AI has been taken to that, and I think it's going to go much further, by the way.
Yeah.
I mean, China can lock you down with the last quarantine they had. It was ridiculous how much they were able to control the population and lock them down.
Yeah. Then what we need is to roll back the time and read Mary Shelley, because Frankenstein was the first novel that really let us know science can go wrong. Human curiosity and the desire behind the creative impulse can go wrong. So we can guess wrong, we can calculate wrong, and there can be significant human costs.
But what about when wrong is just blatantly wrong? Like what we've talked about over the past couple of days has been blatant.
Yes.
We look take an issue, and again, not politicizing it. Education. Some person says, "I want to teach your kids about sexuality in the 2nd grade." You say, "No, I think they should be at 10th grade."
Right.
And we're battling over the AI model, and if this one wins, that's when it's going to be taught in the 2nd grade. And I think that we're already seeing that we're losing the battle. And if we lose the battle in the human world, what happens when we lose the battle in the digital world?
And we all moved to South Dakota.
So here's one. How do we protect our privacy? Do you have a recommendation for the most private cell phone?
Apple has done fairly well. And I think one of the things that you should do easily is get a 2nd and 3rd email address, and then segregate your email for stuff. So if you're going to go do your travel plans, maybe use one email address. And then when you're going to do social media, maybe use another email address. And that way it can all come to your same email box, but then you confuse the trackers. So they never really understand who you are or what you want. Amazon still can't guess.
So we're zigzagging digitally.
You're zigzagging digitally, yes.
All right, here's one. How will AI interact with medical care?
The interesting thing that's happening with medical care is that there's more personal information that's available to your doctors. I just switched from one hospital system to the UCLA system, and they actually use their computers a lot better. But it does mean that my prescriptions are ready when I want them, and they're automatically renewed, that I get results of my blood work. And when I do that every 3 to 6 months, I know what the trend is.
Okay, again, the good side.
That's the good side.
What about the evil side? I can track you. I can look at your heart rate and know you're about to have a stroke and cancel your insurance. Or
There are safeguards. There are safeguards for PII. So personally, individually identifiable information is safeguarded right now under American law. So there are people who will cheat and fraudsters, and your corporation or your insurance company that has information about you, they're being attacked by corporate espionage. So if your company is breached, then you're in trouble. So that's a little bit out of your control, but that hurts that company too.
This question is, what are the concerns for facial recognition?
Facial recognition is real. And there are people who hack it. They have figured out if you use different color frames on your glasses, that screws up a lot of facial recognition. But again, that is your personal information. And Apple has designed its phones so that personal information actually stays on your phone.
Yeah, but we're talking about Apple. We're not talking about Minority Report when I walk into that store.
True.
And they know where I went, et cetera. So let me ask you, because we're running out of time here. Let's talk about Terminator. Can machines take over? Elon Musk seems to believe that we can reach this Terminator point. I'm going to call it a digital singularity, where a machine gets smarter than man and says, I'm now ready to run the show. What are your thoughts?
That's what we call artificial general intelligence. Right now, AIs are very specific. Text to picture, text to speech, speech to text, interpret a movie, interpret a paragraph.
Touch on those a little bit more, because you're glossing over it. Okay, text to speech, people get.
Mm-hmm.
What was one?
Text to movie. You can type in, and there's equivalents of DALL-E, which will say, show me a Valkyrie with a sword, swinging her sword in a cartoon format. And then she says
it creates this.
And it creates a comic book or creates an animated short film. So those things are really happening.
Yeah, so
Hollywood will do it first, and then we'll figure out how to do it cheaply, and then everybody will be able to do it.
But my question is the government doing it before Hollywood does it in nefarious ways? I mean, I've watched enough Mission Impossible to know what's possible.
Yeah. Well, the government has, General Dynamics and Martin Marietta and Boeing, and they're not necessarily interested in small arms fire. So most of the things that we're doing on computers is small arms fire. They're talking about state-on-state conflict. So they're at another level.
Which is even more scary, Michael.
It is.
Because that's, everything that we get that was put on the space shuttle, it ends up on the car or ends up, on a boat or something like that. So if they're working at it at this macro level, and as I said, that's what I think people start to get a little bit concerned of. Are we going to get to that stage where AI turns on us? And I don't know that we're going to answer that question today, by the way, but are we going to get to the stage where AI, we're out of time, where AI hits that level of sentience that makes the average American almost live in fear?
When they have a robot quarterback that can beat Mahomes, then I'll worry.
All right, folks. I don't know if there's any more questions, but Michael.